Hi, I'm Lawrence, and welcome to my channel where I talk about books. The reason I started this channel is a couple months back I created a book talk account on TikTok and started just rambling about books I liked, and it got a lot of engagement and people seemed to really like it. So I wanted to move a bit to YouTube to record, I think, a bit of the longer videos and record something that feels a bit more concrete than TikTok, which is a bit ephemeral. And also with some of the Western governments, including Canada, where I live, being a bit suspicious of TikTok, maybe this will be a good way to record things if, the vagaries of technology go through what they do. As for why I think you should join me on this and subscribe and follow along and engage in the comments, I've been reading over 100 books a year for over a decade now, ever since I graduated university. And in university, I studied modern literature, and so I have a deep familiarity with a lot of the academic concepts, discussions, analysis, though I'm going to try to not use a lot of academic terms here. This is just a fun account to sort of post about what I find interesting and try to remember all the books that I go through and hopefully join some fun communities that can get me more books to read. I'm not really sure what I want to do with this channel yet, but I'm pretty sure it'll just be longer form versions of what I'm already doing on TikTok, which is engagement with books that I'm currently reading, some recommendations from books that have read that I think other people might find interesting, as well as some literary analysis of books that I think really deserve that deep dive. I'll mostly be focusing on literary fiction because that's what I read most of, and I tend to read as internationally as possible in a range of translated languages as well. I speak French and Spanish, so I try to read French and Spanish in their original languages, but I think I'm also going to do some genres that I really like. I love horror and I love sci-fi. I'll also be doing some nonfiction that I pick up and read, probably mostly history, journalism, and some memoirs. Try to provide people with a range of the interesting books that I like to read. This is never going to be a personal blog or a vlog where I go to day in the life and get really personal. It's just going to be a place where I talk about books, but I figure I can give you a bit of insight into what books and authors I really do enjoy and what you might see on this channel. As far as modern authors, I'm a huge fan of a couple Canadians that I really enjoy. Dionne Brand is probably my favorite author currently writing. She's a Trinidadian Canadian and she has written everything. She started as a poet and then moved into novels. She's actually even directed some documentaries, but a bunch of her books are incredible. Theory is this wonderful academic satire that's so dry and arch and perfect. Love Enough is this beautiful stories on love. Her poetry collections, Ossuaries, The Blue Kirk, are incredible, and I think everyone should really read her work. Also, Andre Alexis, who won the Giller Prize up here for 15 Dogs, which has been turned into a play. I've read 5 or 6 of his books that I've all really enjoyed, particularly the Quincunx 5-book saga, which includes 15 Dogs, which are these wonderful different genres of books that explore in a fun and highly readable musical way different philosophies and existentialism. It's a really great series, and I think everyone should read Andre Alexis. He's a very accessible but a very literary and interesting author to go back to. As far as international authors that I really enjoy, I've been reading a lot of Han Kang. I really like Yaa Gyasi. I've been reading a lot of Hanif Abdurraqib. I've also started getting into some Eastern European writers, Laszlo Krasznahorkai, a Hungarian writer, as well as Mircea Cărturescu, a Romanian writer. And as far as classics, I don't think anyone would be surprised. I love Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, who I find has this really wonderfully oral quality to his writing. I love Nabokov's Pale Fire and Penin. One of my favorite books of all time is Robert Penn Warren's All the King's Men. He's the only person to win the Pulitzer Prize for both poetry and prose, and this book is a highly fictionalized overview of Huey Long type Southern politician character, but it's written in this wonderful stretching Southern drawl that goes through a whole analysis of humanity, sin, lust, redemption, populism, racism, and it's just an incredible novel. So if you've read that, you can sort of see where my sensibilities lie. As far as Russian classics, I tend to prefer Tolstoy over Dostoevsky. Tolstoy I find a bit more realistic. Dostoevsky, everyone's a bit hysterical, which can be fun. And as far as genre fiction, I read a lot of horror. One of my favorite current writers is John Langan, whose The Fisherman is a really great Cthulhu and Lovecraft inspired work, as well as historical writers. Michael McDowell is an incredible, incredible writer, and The Elementals is my favorite horror novel of all time. And then speculative fiction and sci-fi are my other bread and butter in genre work. Octavia Butler and Kay Jemisin, as well as I want to give a shout out to Nello Hopkinson, who I think is a really underread writer. And of course, Ted Chiang short stories are also huge. As for what you can expect here, the reason that I do love reading so much is it's the best way to fold yourself into a completely different world and see the world through someone's eyes. It's accessible both for the writer to write a book as well as the reader to read it, as long as you've hopefully had the education to be able to read, and you can experience a whole new world. I try to read as internationally as possible because I love seeing things through new perspectives and exploring worlds that I might not know anything about if it weren't for books. What I like about TikTok is it's very easy to sort of just point and shoot and upload, and YouTube seems to be a bit more finicky for editing and figuring things out and posting. So I don't think I'll be updating nearly as much as I do on my TikTok, and you can feel free to follow there as long as it lasts. But here I'm going to try to update maybe a couple times a month with longer form videos and really get into that analysis that I can't get to on TikTok. After all, I am a man in my mid 30s. I do have a job that takes up a lot of my time, and while I do enjoy it, this will only ever be a sort of fun activity that I do in my off time to talk about one of my leisure activities that I really enjoy doing. And lastly, I wanted to give a shout out to the Toronto Public Library, which makes all of my reading possible. They're the largest circulating library in North America, and they usually have any book that I want. If not circulating, then they've got a reference library where you can read old, rare books in the library, as well as they've got the Merrill collection of sci-fi and fantasy, which goes back hundreds of years, and you can read all these obscure sci-fi and fantasy speculative fiction that's really, really nice, just down on College Street. So yeah, I'm going to try to upload a video in the coming days which will go more in depth into the best books that I read of 2024, mostly fiction, literary fiction, as well as a comic, a memoir, and a couple nonfiction books as well, probably about 15 total. I went into them in my TikTok, but I want to go a bit more deep into what really made those books work for me and why I think you should read them. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. I guess like and subscribe, and we'll see if we can get this channel to work. Thanks.